And now I have the honor of introducing my Smithsonian colleague and your moderator for today, Dawn Rogala. Dawn is a paintings conservator and program manager at the Smithsonian's Museum Conservation Institute. She studies and conserves paintings and painted objects at the Smithsonian and affiliate institutions, and creates and oversees a range of MCI programs in cultural heritage protection, provenance research, and anti-trafficking, including in-person and online training workshops with federal law enforcement, developed in collaboration with multiple Smithsonian units and federal agency partners, including the U.S. Department of State, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and U.S. Department of Justice. Dawn, over to you.
Thanks so much, Samantha. And yes, welcome to everyone who is coming back after multiple days of fantastic talks. Welcome to everyone who's signing in for the first time today. As Sam mentioned, we will have videos available later for people who are not able to make it to some of the earlier days. I would like to welcome you to the final day of this conference, which will be focused on recovery. And yes, my name is Dawn Rogala. I'm at the Smithsonian's Museum Conservation Institute, which is a unit at the Smithsonian that works with all 21 museums, 9 research centers, and our national zoo on some of the trickiest conservation and technical analysis questions. And we have recently also merged with the Smithsonian Cultural Rescue Initiative, and you've heard from staff of both of those places. You can see how dedicated we are to disaster risk management for cultural heritage. So we are thrilled to be involved in this conference this week. And I want to just move right into the talks here and ask our first speaker to please turn on their camera. And I'd like to introduce you to Achal Pandya. Professor Pandya trained in conservation with an education in chemistry and is working at the Indira Ghandi National Center for the Arts in New Delhi, where he is head of the conservation and collections divisions. He specialized in metal conservation and is implementing conservation projects in different parts of the country, is involved in museum services, research and development, training, and capacity building. Professor Pandya was instrumental in launching the reorganization of museum storage campaigns in India, where he collaborated closely with ICOM. He is an expert member of the UNESCO Program Disaster Risk Management for Libraries, Archives, and Museums, and is visiting faculty at various national institutions. He was a member of the directory board of ICOM-CC between 2014 and 2020, and has coordinated the National Organizing Committee of the 15th Triennial Conference of ICOM-CC that was held in New Delhi. And I want to remind everyone, we'll put the links up again, I believe, for the conference program again in the bios. So all the speakers' full bios will be, again, accessible through those links. And Professor Pandya will be speaking on the rescue and long-term preservation efforts following the floods in Jaipur, India. Professor Pandya, over to you.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone according to the time zones, different time zones. I'm really delighted to welcome you all to this session on disaster risk management for cultural heritage as part of the Focus on Conservation 2024 series. My name is Dr. Achal Pandya, and I'm Professor and Head of Division of Conservation at Indira Ghandi National Center for the Arts. You can see it here. So today's session brings together professional students and enthusiasts from all around the globe. The diversity highlights the importance of protecting our cultural heritage and shows the traditions which transcends border and time zones. And that is how, like, Smithsonian, ICOM-CC, and all the subcommittees of ICOM have organized this wonderful forum for dissemination of such an important topic. So our focus today is on understanding the challenges faced by one of India's most iconic museums, the Albert Hall Museum in Jaipur. Can you please go on to the next slide, please? So this is the hello. Next, please. So this will be the sequence of my presentation about Albert Hall Jaipur, its collection, disaster, response, recovery, and future strategies, preservation strategies. Next, please. Next. So this Jaipur is in like northwestern part of India, and it's a very important from the point of view of cultural heritage, that it has got uh, 3 forts in this city which are inscribed in the UNESCO's heritage list. Besides that, there are other famous monuments, and it is one of the most important destinations where tourists come from all parts of the world. Next, please. So this is the museum about which I am going to talk. The name of the museum is Albert Hall Museum in Jaipur, and you can see it's not just the collection. The building itself is very important. Next, please. The other view of the building. So this, I'll just give you a brief history of this museum. During the reign of Maharaja Ram Singh in the year 1876, during the visit of Britain's Queen's Victoria's son, Prince of Wales, Albert Edward, to Jaipur, the foundation of Albert Hall was laid by him to make his visit memorable. Next, please. And in 1880, Maharaja Savai Madho Singh too ascended the throne of Jaipur, and it was immediately decided that the building to be built would be a museum building. And the construction of Albert Hall was completed in 1887 during his reign. And the architect of the Albert Hall was Samuel Swinton Jacob. And in fact, he made many buildings. He designed many buildings in India. And this was also called as the Jacobean architecture, because he mixed Mughal, Rajasthani, and he brought some colonial elements also to the building. In fact, he became the reason why there are so many buildings which are attributed to or were designed or by Jacob, was that he was heading the Public Works Department of Jaipur State. And he had met him during a coronation ceremony in 1902. Next, please. So you can see this building has a very good collection of artifacts. But in addition to this building has got a lot of historic interiors into this. Next, please. So you can see intricate. Earlier you had seen the Pietra Dura work. Here you can see the intricate stone carving of pillar. Next, please. Next. So you can see the wall paintings here and other decorative elements here, the stucco work, the marble carvings. Next. Then I come to the collection. So in this case, in a building like this, in a museum like this, which was really conceived like a museum right from its inception, the risk due to disaster is not just to the collection but also to the building. So you can see there's I'll just briefly talk about the collection that this museum has. Next, please. Just to give you an idea, a trailer of the museum. This is a carpet. Next, please. So 1632 Persian carpet. Next. There's an international art gallery. They have got a lot of objects. In fact, when Maharajas from these princely states in India, they used to travel abroad, they used to bring with them the objects which were in vogue in Europe or in other part of the world. Next, please. Next. So this is just an view. Just keep on doing the next, please. Yes. Next. Next. Next, ceramics. Next. Some views of the galleries. Next, please. Next. Next. stone sculptures. Next, please. The stone sculptures which were found in the excavations later also, or after Archaeological Survey of India was formed, they used to come to the museums. Arms and Armory is also a very, very important collection of this museum. Next. This is the view of the gallery. Next, please. Next. Next. Next, please. Next. 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 So you see, this is in papier-mâché, and imagine, because I'm going to speak about flood, what will happen to this papier-mâché thing when it remains in water for a very long period. Next. 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 Then this is also one of the most important museums where the miniature paintings belonging to Rajasthani style, Jaipur style are there. Next. It's the view of the miniature painting gallery. These are displayed here. Like next. The subjects. Next. Numismatic gallery. Next, please. These are the coins. Next. 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 This is the historic interior of the thing. Next, please. Next. 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 The decorative art, the textiles, the costumes, really the intricate ones. Next. There's a big collection of textiles that they have. Next. And they have, this is like one of the most valuable object that they call. There's mummy, which is from Egypt. Next. 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 His name is Tutu. And this is with the sarcophagus and the detailed studies which took place in this. Next. 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 Next, please. Next. Musical instruments. Next. 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 Next, please. In fact, this was really important to show the type of collection that they have. It's both from the point of view of my country, it is a classical art that you have. In addition to that, there's a lot of ethnographic objects, the objects which are used in the folk culture are present in that. And the collection is mainly both organic and inorganic in nature. And the organic objects, unfortunately, were damaged during this flood. Next, please. So this is, we saw some beautiful things for last 5 minutes, and now I'll come to the disaster which has struck. Next, please. So this, on 14th of August 2020, Jaipur, the capital city of Rajasthan, it experienced an unprecedented weather event with heavy rainfall. The Meteorological Center recorded a staggering 132 meter of rain in the city, while the airport received 102.6 millimeter of rainfall. Next, please. So this is how it looks in normal days, this place, this museum. And next, and after, when on 14th of August 2020, the scene was like this. Next, please. And it captured the headlines of many newspapers in the country, not just the local thing, but also the many national newspapers. They covered it. It was an important calamity to which this museum had struck. Next, please. And the reason for this was that an excessive rainfall. In addition to that, they had done a lot of urban development around this area, in which the height of the road had increased. So when the water started to enter the museum, it had never occurred before, but when it started to occur, I'll show you. Next, please. This was the scene in the basement, which was used as a storage area. You can see the level to which the water had gone. Next, please. Next. And in the absence of any disaster risk management plan and no prior experience or training in response to disaster, this team at Albert Museum, though saved some of the precious collection, but there was a serious damage to collection which remained submerged in water for some time. Next. So they were really not prepared, because it's an arid zone and no one was prepared for such a heavy rainfall. I've already spoken about it. Next, please. So I've already told why the water had entered, because the surrounding road, which is a roundabout, had really gone 10 inches above the historic building. Next, please. And the key issues were the heightened moisture level resulting from the flood created an ideal environment for growth of mold. So these deleterious microorganisms not only pose health hazards, but also pose a substantial threat to the preservation and longevity of invaluable artifacts housed within the museum. Next, please. So this was the condition after the floods. And just I would like to inform you, since these people had no disaster risk management plan. So whatever images that they took and was all completely just for the sake of really an unprofessional documentation. But you can see the type of damage that has occurred. And also the museum storage was also not very well organized for any such for reduction of risk due to flood in for the collection. Next, please. So these were the taxidermy collection, and you can see the crocodiles. They were already not in very good condition, but after they remained in water for a long time, there was a serious damage. Next, please. Next. So now, if we don't have a clear idea of the collection, how can one respond? This is the question. The response of this museum was a knee-jerk reaction, because all the focus was that they had to save the precious collection, and the curator of the museum was also not in the town. So, but when he came to know that the water has entered into the museum, he also got into action, and he directed his team to save the collections whatever they could. Can you just go to the next slide, please? So, as I told you, for them, the mummy, there was a special mummy room which was created specially. It was a very well curated room in the basement, which had like darkness and things like that, and it used to really attract the visitors. But that basement, putting mummy in the basement, turned out to be a nightmare for this team, and they just broke open the showcase and took out the mummy, and luckily it was really saved. Next. So that became a headline because it's one of the important. Oh, my presentation has gone.
Yep. Hang on.
Yes, please. Next, please.
Back to it.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
So now you can see the aftermath, the response, the drawing of the files, the books was like this. So not really a professional one. Next, please. Imagine the damage that would have occurred, but they had, since there was no training, there was no disaster risk management plan. So this is the best they did, what they thought that is the best. Next, please. And then since they have got, they were really, when a disaster strikes, it is quite a demotivating thing, and for the museum professionals who are working in the museum, and especially when objects gets damaged and all. So they were quite nervous, and they really did not know what to do, and it was no one's fault, because museum or the authorities in India, they are not like it's not compulsory to have a disaster risk management plan. So majority of the museums, even the big national museums also, they have a disaster management plan. If a fire comes or if there's an earthquake and all, their people will come to save life or to save the structures and all, but they will not come for saving the collection. So that training is required. So what is the recovery? Is disaster recovery, salvaging damaged collection items after disaster is contained, restoring disaster situation to as close to normal as possible. So this process can take hours, days, weeks, or even years. So here I'll show you the response that we gave. Next, please. So when the conservators were called for salvaging it, so you can see now from the untrained team, you can see the professionals have come. They did this remedial conservation for 1,260 objects, and 4,720 out of 5,000 have undergone re-verification and documentation. So there are around 250 objects which are either missing or damaged, or their labels have been removed from the collection. Next, please. So from this, next, please. So there has been a taxidermy treatment also of the crocodile. Next, please. And the authorities in Albert Hall Museum, they did was that they just increased the height of the wall and reduced the size of the window. And enhanced barrier were constructed around the museum premises to facilitate the efficient diversion and redirect of excess rainwater away from vulnerable areas. These were all like a knee-jerk reactions. Next. So for last 4 years, the salvage operation and conservation of damaged objects is still going on. It's not yet finished. Next, please. And long-term preservation strategies that we thought would be ideal for we are not taking it as a long-term preservation strategy for one museum, but we decided that we will start a campaign for that all museums, libraries, and archives, they prepare their disaster risk management plan. And next, please. So development of a DRM, emergency preparedness and response net framework. Next, please. So integration with city level plans. Next, please. Risk assessment and prioritization, and strengthening collaborative networks and partnerships. So building a network of conservation experts, local community involvement, cross-institutional resource sharing, capacity building and training. Next, please. And for that, we collaborated with UNESCO. They in fact brought out this building resilience training toolkit, which has got step-by-step methods along with the case studies that how a document, we call it the documentary heritage or the memory institutions, library, archives, and museums can make their own disaster risk management plan. And IGNCA, in collaboration with UNESCO and Government Public Library in Allahabad, hosted a 5-day long workshop on disaster risk management. And these are the series of workshops. We'll do it for next 3 years, where we'll try to cover the entire country. Next, please. So this was in Allahabad, in Prayagraj. Next, please. Next, so we tell them the scenarios and how to react in that. Next, please. Next, please. So that was the first, the completion of the thing. And the next one is planned in Albert Hall in February, which will be the museum. So this was the library. Then we are working in a museum. And the third one will be in Ladakh, in northern part of the country, in June 2025. Next, please. So this is what I had to present you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And if you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you so much. Yes, we have a ton of questions. We have that's just amazing. And of course, it comes from a disaster, but to have that kind of create this entire nationwide network and training, I mean, that's really fantastic. I'm going to pull up some of these questions and ask you a few of them. All right, here we go. Is there a state agency that can provide technical assistance, by example, pumping out water or checking the stability of buildings after a disaster? And if so, can it be used for saving cultural heritage after an incident?
Actually, in India, we have got a network of, we have a National Disaster Management Authority, a professional body which works very well whenever there is a storm or flooding or thing. But they have come out with a manual for museums and all, but they are not very savvy about the collection. So now what we have started is that in India we have got, there is no dearth of engineers who can do the structural stability of the buildings. But the only thing is that the culture during disaster is not in the forefront. It's about saving lives, because the people who are living in storms, they're living just next to the sea. So the priority of the government is to save lives. and save lives in museum. Whenever if there will be an earthquake, first thing will be there to save lives in the museum. And once these fire people will enter, or the department police will enter, and they will finish their work, then only the conservators will be allowed to go inside the building, which happens everywhere in the world. It's the same thing. But the only thing is that once their work is over, for example, if there is a fire, people have put a lot of water to extinguish the fire. So there is another problem which is coming up, is that all the books will get stuck, or the mold will start growing and all. So then the museum professionals are not trained how to take up that job. Whether there is no availability, for example, I'll give you an example, that there is no availability of freezers, which are really very handy when objects gets damaged because of flood. So there is no availability of freezer that which allows you to buy time, that mold is not growing and things like that. So when you have a disaster risk management plan, so it can, like, you can have a disaster box which is kept in different places, and it becomes handy when you are doing something. You can wear gloves, you can have blotting papers to dry the things, and you can create like air tunnels to dry the things, and you can have a generator. And if you have got 4 or 5 cultural organizations in close proximity, they can also create a common unit which can have sophisticated things also, like these freezers and things like that. So that's thing. So museums, library, archives, memory institutions have not been like are not the focus area of disaster management authority. And all these disaster management authorities have really a good network. It is in all the districts that they have a network, which is headed by a district magistrate, we call it. He's the head of the district, and he is the one who has at his disposal the organizations like National Disaster Risk Force. Things like that are there, NDRF.
Yeah, I think we run into that. I think everybody runs into that where, and a lot of museums do try to reach out to like local fire brigades and things like that, to have them come in and get a tour of the museum and try to understand. And it can be very difficult because they don't think they need to learn this. And they come in and suddenly understand why. But you're right, archives don't often get the opportunity to do that. I'm going to jump on, because we have a lot of questions for you, and I want
sorry.
We'll have breakout rooms at the end of the day where you can meet the speakers. So we're not going to get to all your questions right now, but we'll have time after. All right, next question. Did this experience change the exhibition layout of the museum? Like, no more mummies in the basement.
No more mummies in the basement. That's true. But actually, it takes time. Actually, I told you that it is not their fault at all. It is not curator's fault. It is not in the standard operating procedure of the museum, which should be there. So it is not his fault at all. But there's a lot of demotivation which comes. So first thing is that their preference is also that what are these conservators doing? Oh, they are able to solve my mummy. They're able to save my crocodile, things like that. That's the thing. So I think now they are in a position that they can do the better exhibition layouts and all. But curation wise, it was curated very well. And in fact, it's such a beautiful building that it's not very difficult to create a nice layout into it. The basement should not be used as a storage. I think that lesson they have learned.
Yes, I think we all have at some point had to learn that. Here's another one. Did staff who responded to this disaster become part of the training network, become part of the training for other museums where they could, speak about?
Yes. Yeah, it's a case study. It is the case study which is also in this disaster risk management toolkit which is done by UNESCO. There 8-9 countries have participated and they have put in their case study. So this case study is also part of it. so that others can learn lessons from it.
And among that staff, were there staff other than conservators that have become part of the network?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Actually, anyone who is part of the who is handling collection, it need not be a curator even, but anyone who is handling collection is part of this network.
Okay. Here's one. So as you said, you have disaster networks to deal with flooding because it is a regular problem. But I was looking at the dates you were putting up, and they were during the pandemic. And how did that affect the normal response? So what kind of impact did that have?
No, but you see that during the pandemic, you see the way they are. It's not about saving themselves from mold and the thing. They're not even wearing masks and things like that. They're folding their pants. They're not prepared at all. So it was a really demotivating thing that you already have a pandemic when you have your offices closed on alternate days.
Right.
And you have to do this also. So it was really a demotivating time for the museum staff. They were really, I will not say scared, but they were really not in a position to, emotionally they were struck by this pandemic and this disaster.
Yeah, it's gosh, I can't even imagine. It sounds difficult, but then to have it be able to turn into this movement to do training, to inform people, I think helps, turn it into something good.
Now we have pandemic also, like in our disaster risk management plan toolkit, we have added pandemic also, that you have to be prepared. You do not know how it will come. So these people also during pandemic, I'm sure that one of the relatives of these people who are doing the salvage and all was suffering of COVID or was really undergoing the casualties of COVID. That's there.
And for those members of our audience who were here for some of the earlier talks, we heard from several people about when they were doing their disaster risk management plans, pandemics were really low on their what they thought was risk until, of course, 2020. We have time for one more question I'm going to put in here. And again, we will do additional questions at the end. How long did it take to rescue all of the artifacts and transition to the transit area? Did this search and rescue of the artifacts go full force within your staff? So, what was the overall process? What was your timeline for this? I realize it's a big question.
No, 4 years I've already told you, and it's ongoing.
Okay, yes.
It's an ongoing thing. And I had given you a figure that some 1,200 objects have been given remedial conservation. And there are still 250 objects which we are not able to find. And we know a lot of things like papier-mâché objects. They had turned into pulp. Lot of papier-mâché objects they have become pulp. No color on that. Color had all washed away, and it was a pulp. You can see the pulp. And we have kept one of the papier-mâché as the. Still, we have not deaccessioned objects because there are certain objects which are beyond salvage. But we will keep certain objects to show that this is the damage which occurs when a flood comes or fire, or there's a flood there's a water damage due to fire and things and all, just to create an awareness in the museum staff and museum directors. In fact, the training requires for the directors also. They are not aware of such risks and such damages that can occur.
Yes. From when the waters sort of hit their height to when you first were able to move objects out?
No, we were not there. I was not there.
Okay.
I entered the scene only a month after.
Okay.
Already they had done. That's what I'm saying, that the response was not professional at all, but they did their level best.
Right. No, I think the fact that people came in during a pandemic to do that, it's amazing how people sort of stepped up and did this, and it was so important. And yes, looking through those beautiful pictures at the beginning of what materials were in there, and the minute you went to the paper mache, I was like, oh no. I mean, there's so This is the physical evidence of the human experience, right? And
swords were corroded. Swords were corroded. They were like, you can see the fresh corrosion layer on the swords which had appeared and things like that. They were there when we entered. We entered after a month. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Oh,
it takes a lot of time for even calling, because my team is situated in Delhi, and this Jaipur Albert Hall is 300 kilometers away from Delhi. And there was no coordination between any conservator who can do the assessment immediately. In fact, they had to do more of a media management, because media was after them. And then they said, no, we will hire we'll hire a national body to do the salvage, things like that. And then we entered. When they said go ahead, we started working together.
I think that this kind of organization and distance and delay and communication is something we're going to be hearing over the course of the day as we focus on the topic of recovery. Thank you so much.